Okay, so great. Welcome to this panel discussion. The title is NLP, Reconstructing Narratives about the Ongoing Nakba. The intention here is to reflect on where we stand now and how we can move forward with the aim of reconstructing the narratives about the Nakba, the ongoing Nakba. And the ongoing Nakba is a term that signifies approximately 100 years of Nakba, so to speak. I'll introduce first the panelists. We have 4 panelists with us. Dr. Karim Darwish, who is a principal scientist at the Qatar Computing Research Institute, so QCRI. He is I know Karim for a long time now at the conferences of NLP conferences. His work has been mostly on state-of-the-art tools for Arabic processing and social computing, which has been well received. We have with us also Mrs. Rama Salahat. Excuse me if I'm not pronouncing correctly because I didn't see it in Arabic. She is an AI specialist and technology officer at Hamla. Her work focuses on building decolonial AI, auditing content moderation systems, and challenging power structures embedded in technology. We also have with us Dr. Jamila Ghaddar. She's an assistant professor in archival information and digital humanities at the University of Amsterdam. She's also founding director of the Archives and Digital Media Lab and research affiliate at the American University of Beirut School of Architecture and Design. She is a co-founder of the Fighting Erasure, Digitizing Gaza's Genocide, a project co-founded together with Dr. Haneen Shahada, our 4th panelist. She is an assistant professor at New York University, Abu Dhabi, and research associate at the Maroun Sam'an Faculty of Engineering and Architecture at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. Welcome all. What we'll do here, I suggest at least that I start with one of you, basically start with Dr. Karim with a question. Please feel free to respond to the others. At some point, I hope we will have a free discussion. That's the intention. Okay, I start with Dr. Karim first, with the first question. So, as a leading expert in Arabic NLP, where do you think we stand at this moment with Arabic NLP, given that we don't have our own AI, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, and how can NLP help reconstruct the narrative about the Nakba, and what resources do we need to do so?
Okay, so Assalamu alaikum first. I'm very happy for the invitation. Thank you, Dr. Khalil. Always a pleasure to be with you. So you ask actually quite a large question, and there are 2 aspects of this. One of them is technical, and the other part is operational. On the technical side, I think when we deal with reconstructing the Nakba and the ongoing Nakba, there are actually 2 parts. The first part has to do with the Arabic, and the other part has to do with other languages other than Arabic, including Hebrew and English and other languages. On the English side, I think on even most European languages, the landscape is actually quite mature. On the Arabic side, the maturity level has been increasing dramatically over the past few years. This is evident by the large community of Arabic NLP. The mailing list has over 1,000 people. There are many efforts in the region, in the Arab region, for building sovereign AI with models like Allam in Saudi Arabia, Fanar in Qatar, Jason in the United Arab Emirates, Karnak in Egypt, and so forth. If you look at other technologies like speech recognition and OCR, they have been steadily improving over the past few years. They're not at par with English yet, but I think in the next probably 2 or 3 years, we'll get to that point. So the missing, I think, piece is where the Hebrew part is. I think Hebrew is a lot more developed compared to what we have for Arabic, and for definitely compared to English. And I think reconstructing the narrative requires that we actually do all the languages well. It's on one side you want to I think other panelists will talk about the digital archiving of the content that we are receiving from Gaza or from Lebanon and so forth. A lot of it is coming in Arabic, but we should not be neglecting what Channel 14 and Channel 12 are spewing all the time, documenting their narrative, documenting the way that they see the world, how they cheer on the genocide that's actually ongoing. Also, Hebrew social media, that for longest time people thought that they're in isolation and they don't actually see people. The world doesn't see what they're saying and what they're doing. That needs to be resurfaced, and that would require not just data collection, but also competent speech recognition, competent OCR, and competent language modeling for that language, for these languages. So in that sense, I think English and European languages are doing very well. Arabic is not far behind, and Hebrew is way behind, and that needs to be kind of fixed.
How do we stand on dialects? Just to before I move to the other.
That's a great question. So, okay, so if you compare Arabic, MSA, Modern Standard Arabic, and dialects, particularly in the area of speech recognition, I think speech recognition, for example, is behind. In the sense that you can get below 10% word error rate for MSA, and the typical word error rate for dialects is around in the range of about 20% or so. This gap needs to be filled, particularly for more niche dialects or pronunciations. So this is on the speech side. If you're looking at the text side, I think the gap is much narrower than speech. You'll find that most large LLMs, including Fanar, and I'm pretty sure Alam and others, they wouldn't have any problem understanding dialectal text, making sense of it. The mapping between the concepts that happens, implicitly inside of the model are actually quite robust.
Thank you. That's a great. It's a great start. We talked about the technical stuff, so I'll move now to Mrs. Rama Salahat. So from your experience and work at Hamla, maybe you can tell us a bit about it, because that's in Palestine. And maybe you can tell us also how you think maybe or where can reconstructing the narratives about the Nakba can be use NLP in the best way.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for the invitation to join this panel. I'm glad to be a part of this very important discussion. So I want to start my speech with a framing point that today's biased and censored data becomes tomorrow's historical record in AI systems. What gets removed or downranked or made invisible becomes a structural absence that future language models will then treat as natural. And on the other hand, what is allowed to circulate and be amplified becomes the normal distribution that models learn from. And from this perspective, platform governance and moderation decisions extend from shaping the current public discourse to shaping the data sets that future AI systems learn from. Thus, what becomes, let's say, like narratively recoverable at scale. From our work at Hamla, we explore this in several structural ways. In one of Hamla's publications, Silence Networks, the research shows that a very strong chilling effect around political expression, where surveillance, interrogation, and fear of consequences reduce online participation, especially amongst the youth. And from an NLP perspective, this is very important because it means that the data generation itself from the beginning is being structurally suppressed at the source, making the absence of narrative or speech produced and forced rather than just organic. On the other hand, in our violence indicator work, specifically the one monitoring Hebrew content online through in-house models that we have trained, where we study how narratives of violence circulate at scale and how platform governance responds unevenly over time. One clear example was the hashtag and phrase flatten Gaza, or in Hebrew, it's pronounced Lemchoket Gaza, something like that, which circulated widely across platforms beginning October 2023, and then remained like highly visible for months, accumulating tens of thousands of occurrences before being made unsearchable by Meta mid-2024 after lots and lots of continuous external pressure from partners and big-scale data-backed documentation. So what this highlights is the importance of building in-house technical systems, like Dr. Karim said, that are representative of our narratives. Because this kind of technical work, when you combine it with advocacy and external pressure, it can sometimes lead to changes in platform behavior, even if only partially, by making visibility asymmetries measurable and harder to ignore. What this also shows is that we cannot really separate narrative reconstruction from the systems that determine what data gets to exist and be easily and cheaply accessible in the first place. And thirdly, through HUR, our Observatory for Digital Rights Violations, we maintain a structured data set of nearly 15,000 documented cases of content removal, suppressed political speech, and hatred and violence online since 2021. That data is vetted by humans and we collected in order to try to make action through these platforms where this content existed, which functions as a counted corpus, measuring what is missing or unjustly removed from mainstream datasets, which is, I think, it's very essential for understanding what to look for in data when trying to analyze and understand bias in AI models. So at this point, what I want to leave this panel with is that narrative reconstruction extends from documentation and analysis to also become a question of dataset construction under conditions of asymmetric visibility and platform governance. And that unless we explicitly account for how platforms determine what remains visible and what is removed, future language models will inherit structurally these missing histories.
This is very good. I mean, just to summarize a bit what the two of the, in my opinion at least, most important issues that you raise is that there is an underrepresentation plus suppression of the narrative, let me call it this way, in AI, but also in the in general on the media, and what this combined with what Dr. Karim said about the Arabic dialects, since most of for example, the videos are in Arabic dialects, this means that it is rather complicated to process and also to bring together. I'll give apparently Dr. Karim has a response. I'll give it to him, and then I move afterwards to Dr. Jamila. Karim?
If I may, I mean, just to second on what Rama said, this suppression and is actually, we can actually see it in the current LLMs. We don't actually have to wait until the future. I would ask you to go on like on Gemini and ChatGPT and ask both of them about the Haganah gangs, which were deemed terrorist organizations, and look at the answer that they give back. The answer is really, really, really shocking. I mean, if you look at it, you'll think that these are peace-loving, tree-hugging, angels who came to save people, while everybody deemed them as terrorist organizations.
Yeah, this is all very important because I think if I move now to Dr. Jamila Ghaddar, I mentioned the project that you're leading together with Dr. Haneen Shahada. Could you start with telling us about that and then respond to whatever you think is important to you in this discussion so far?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. everything, a lot of what's been said certainly resonates with me. We at the Fighting Erasure Project, the long title, Fighting Erasure, Digitizing Gaza's Genocide on the War on Lebanon, it has various components. The key part that I work on is on the archives and records side, and we're really struggling to understand how and what it looks like to rescue and recover and safeguard archives and records, particularly those in my area of the project that pertain to, that have this kind of evidentiary quality, whether evidence of the genocide itself. So for example, this epic and rather arguably impossible task we took on of archiving social media in a particular kind of archival science way, and alternatively, what it could look like to mass digitize and rescue and recover from under the rubble. But in terms of the evidentiary, it has to do with people's rights and property and administration and governance and all the kinds of things that connect and prove and assert both the history and present of the people on the land, because of course that's the settler colonial logic to try to eliminate any and all proof of that. And, like everybody in various ways, we are struggling with digital infrastructures and information infrastructures that are all big tech, that are all connected to these really problematic platforms. We're trying to understand and have conversations around what does a digital sovereignty and data sovereignty look like, both at the infrastructural and theoretical level, war zones and conflict areas, and areas perhaps where we may not feel all that much more comfortable in terms of, say, the Gulf context, which is really the Gulf states, which are really leading a lot of this because it takes all this money. There's a lot of pieces to what I'm saying. One thing is I can certainly, as an archivist and a historian of archiving in the last 500 years, certainly echo what you said, Rama, that and Karim, that the language models that AI is built on already is absolutely colonialist and racist and certainly Orientalist, and the depth to which that goes, like 500 years, I mean, you could actually, it's always problematic to find origins. We can go back even more, of course. But the interesting part is how actually, in some regards, those are being disrupted because of the the expression on a mass level of sympathy and various different perspectives and just the evidence and data on the ground. And so, again, that kind of really interesting way. And now we're trying to see how they're trying to actually modify the AI to kind of be dynamic in this way as this different kind of data and perspective is coming in. There is probably, again, way too much I want to say, but maybe to speak the most directly to your question is that for us to reconstruct narratives, it's worthwhile to kind of map out what is the narrative structure of genocide and settler colonialism that they're trying to impose. And certainly a key to that is a kind of fragmentation and dispersal and segregation, not only of people and geographies, but also of the narrative. So we can only ever say this is happening the West Bank. We used to, we used to talk about Arab region wide. Now it's just by nation state. Now it's even as we can all see the profoundly cross-border and regional dynamic nature of the ongoing Nakba, which has always been the case. But settler colonial logics and narratives want to completely destroy that. So what kind of role can we actually have AI play in kind of creating a better sense, especially when we're kind of stuck with the way in which data is around nation states or certain identity groups that can actually obscure all of that, and of course, quite intentionally if you look at the history of these things. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. So this enforces what the previous two speakers have said, and also adds to it a dimension of, the risk of the data being exposed to also to AI on the one hand, and we want on the other hand to have the AI to reflect the balance in the narratives that exist in the world, which is at the moment completely unavailable or not the case. I'll move to Dr. Haneen Shahada. I'm sure she has to add a lot on this. So I've heard her before ask a question which suggested the direction. I'm quite curious, Haneen, to what you have to add. And at the same time, also, please reflect on what the others have said and feel free to add.
Sure. I mean, thank you all for having me here. And it has been such an interesting conference for me, especially given that I'm not a technical person, right? I'm a historian. And so looking at the struggles from an operational perspective is something that I recognize as we're trying to narrate and document and archive and preserve this genocide. And so I thought that maybe I would show you what we have been doing in a way to preserve, right? We're archivists, we're historians, we're trying to preserve whatever there is here. What I've heard today and I've seen repeatedly is that many of us separately across the planet have been preserving data and collecting it on several different hardwares, right? And trying to keep whatever data we can collect in the terabytes, and then look at how we can, right, in the future do something with it. And that's also part of the narrative today, because the way that we see it is that, first of all, this is the first live stream genocide on Earth. So there's a new way of perceiving what's happening in a live stream. Historically, when you archive, when you write history, it's at the end of the moment. It's at the end of the genocide. So when we documented Bosnia, it was when it ended, right? When we wrote about the Holocaust, it was after it happened. The same thing with the Russian words is that you go back and you try to recollect what's happening afterwards and to try to put a narrative. Gaza shifted the ground on us, right? So it was live streaming as it was happening. And the same people that were archiving this ended up being killed, which means that you have a testimony without, right, in the moment of death. For me is, what do we do with all of this? And it took us about, I think, 6 to 7 months to sit with colleagues. And we came up with something that we called the skeleton, which is a massive website or a digital platform that we wanted to create that would reconstruct chronologically somehow the genocide with the data that we have and with a local team in Gaza. So we have 10 field workers, part of our structure, our office in the Gaza Strip, that have this data. We have this triangulation of verification, which means that, let's say we want to document the attack on Mustashfa Shifa. We have what's online, right? But we don't know, is this a picture of Shifa, or is this a Ma'madani, or is this that, where is this? So they take that content, they go to the Ministry of Health, they go to witnesses, they record testimonies. So we have an entire block to recreate that moment. And we have been doing this since October 10th. It's massive, massive, and it's beyond our capacities. Just in terms of time, I just wanted to show, if possible, just share my screen to give you an idea of what in the future this project is meant to look like. So
I think you have the right to share, but I'm not sure completely. Yeah.
So the idea of this big platform is that it will have the main components. So we have spoken to legal scholars that have defined for us first what is genocide, right? And what falls under genocide. And under these legalities, we constructed every single one of those elements. So you can see on the website, genocide, domicide, herbicide. I mean, by now, all of you are very familiar with those terms. the attacks on the hospital. And the idea is that if you click on each one of them, it will pop up and open up into this massive second website that will provide you the numbers, the statistic, the documentation, the doctors, the hospitals. I'm scrolling. I don't know if you see it with me, but let's say we'll give you an idea that before the war, Gaza's health network had 13 governmental hospitals, 18 UNRWA facilities, 5 private hospitals. You click on each one of these, it pops up into a new window. And the idea is that, you know, all of those terabytes eventually that we have, that they will be condensed into one space, one massive online archive that will reconstruct this entire genocide precisely to fight erasure. And this is hence the name of our project, Fighting Erasure, is that Meta is deleting, right? Big tech is removing. We have our people in Gaza, they are documenting and safeguarding. And it's not a work that comes without, so this is to give you an idea. So you have, for instance, the chronology of the attacks on the hospitals. You see on October 7, 2023, it's the beginning of the genocide. We see that already initially they had a healthcare facilities were targeted. You click on it, you get all of the details. You go to October 15, 2023. This is when the siege of Al-Shifa Hospital begins. You click on all of these tabs, they take you to other spaces. And then, right, you go down, you have Kamal Adwan has been targeted, Nasser Mustashfa Nasser on January 22, 24, and etc. And the idea is that we build this to do the same thing with, let's say, if you go to Herbicide with the neighborhoods, is that now we're trying to look into one neighborhood after the others. And we have, because it's so massive, we thought that we would start with the north of Gaza that has been massively decomposed. So with neighborhoods like Sabra, Tal al-Hawa, Sheikh Ridwan, Jabalia, Al-Muaskar, Al-Mukhaym al-Shati, and then look at the old maps that the municipality had for those places. So our field workers are going to the municipality, see if they have the old urban planning of these areas. And then with with GIS, try to see what has remained, which units are gone, etc. So you can tell it's a massive project. But we're trying, by doing this, is to undo this or to fight erasure. And whatever data we have now, and luckily, and bless all the people of Gaza who have given us all of that content. I hate to call it content, but they're testimonies to this genocide. And I think part of our job as historians is to fulfill that promise to them, that what they have sacrificed their lives, we will not leave it there to not be seen. So this is the big project with the aim of where we want to go. You can understand that we also face some structural obstacles. Some of them are operational. This is what I was talking with Dr. Alexi about. The idea is, I'm putting the burden now on Dr. Jamila because she's the scientist archivist, but she has been tasked with creating a system to catalog and categorize and tag and filter and authenticate all those mega terabytes of data. So I can take it from her and then just put them in each one of these sections. Ideally, that's what I want. And she told me this morning, give me 6 months. So, but the idea is that we have now, each one of us loosely has that kind of data. I am not a scientist, I cannot, but once I have that information, today we have the platform that can absorb that sort of all of that material once cataloged. So that's for my presentation. I try to stick to the time as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Haneen. So I'll move to Dr. Karim. He raised his hand. Go on, please.
So basically, thank you, Dr. Haneen and Dr. Jamila for your great effort. I guess one of the things that I think we need to find a way that we can kind of speak the same language, in the sense of we have lots of technology that potentially could be of use in that regard. Transcription, data analysis, information extraction from text, even image classification, and so on and so forth. So the tools at our disposal, whether it's in English or Arabic, in this regard, I think is quite strong. But we don't see what you see. You see, I mean, like, you can be our eyes in developing the technology to your benefit. If we can find a way that we can speak kind of the same language, and you say, this is the kind of data that I have, and this is where I want to go, and perhaps we can build you or help you build that bridge.
This is great. I mean, this sounds like a project
I
proposal.
mean, be careful, because we will take you on it, right? Tomorrow I will be in your inbox. So
This is very good.
I know we have so much potential in the Arab world. It's not a lack of it. I think at this point is really a way of finding a way to set up this network. We all want the same thing. I don't speak technical, right? But I speak legal history archiving, and so we have created this skeleton with legal scholars, with historians, with name it, and now we're looking for that. What you just said, Dr. Karim, is to sort of find a way to put all of these systems together, just to build in and find a way to put that content there, and to safeguard it as well, right? There is also the thing that you don't want this website to fall apart or to be deleted so you need also to protect the domain that we're on. So there are many conversations that are happening at the same time.
Oh, great. So this is very good. I mean, it's very inspiring. And I think there are ways to collaborate, apparently. So I hope this matures at some point. I was thinking at the same time, and I'd like to open the floor for others to join us also from the audience. But if others want to raise other points, please feel free. But at the same time, I was thinking we are at probably the most horrible episode of the ongoing Nakba so far, but it is an episode nonetheless, and there have been multiple episodes before that, and where technology, particularly NLP, can be helpful is also to see how to connect the episodes together for historians, whether that is similarities, but also dissimilarities. And I know we have a lot of technical difficulties, but at the same time, there are tools that already work, so to speak. So I'm open that for everybody to think about and maybe discuss. And if there are others from the audience, they're welcome to join us. So how does the current episode relate to the previous episodes of, and would it make sense what I just said about bringing the episodes together in one way or another?
Actually, if I may, I mean, I think this episode obviously is a lot more bloody compared to the previous ones. But the cookbook that they're using is very, very similar, right? I mean, now they say, Hamas is a terrorist organization, and thereby it justifies everything, right? You go to Lebanon, you just replace the word Hamas with some other entity like Hezbollah, and then that's the excuse. Before that, it was the PLO.
Exactly.
And I mean, like, the narrative doesn't change, right? And the Hasbara efforts have been, quite consistent in the same narrative, the same way, and so forth. Given, like, as humans, we can we see it and we like recognize it right away. Whether the AI can recognize it in the same way, there must be a way. but the end result of how, like if you have like a structure and you say, here are the inputs and here are the predictable outputs, I think historians would probably need to tell us what kind of outcome would they be interested in seeing, right?
Yeah.
Because of the similarity. I mean, it's the same narrative almost every
Yes.
time. You just change the names and the locations, and it's the same.
Indeed. Yeah. Go ahead, Rama, please.
I couldn't agree more with Dr. Kareem. And I think there's like this time is a very special time with an opportunity to make really big steps. Like right now with AI agents boom, where like most AI models are based on LLMs and agents and automated collection of the data to get answers. I think there's a lot of work to be done in better designing the platforms where historians get to document the reality. For example, to make it like bot friendly, and helping and making these platforms have better rankings, thus look like more authentic and more what can we call it, more believable in the eyes of a bot. So like if we work in that direction, like the tech where the tech sphere comes hand in hand with the historians and social sciences, researchers and political science researchers, I think there's a lot of space to push the work, because there's already a lot of research being done by amazing people documenting so much of what was happening since October 2023 in Gaza, what was happening in the West Bank, what was happening in Lebanon and Syria and Sudan, and even before that, and all of the previous events, there was a lot of research, even if it was done after the fact of these genocides. I think the work should focus from a technical perspective also on amplifying those through the technical knowledge that we have. Because imagine if like the change it would make to just like when someone asks any conversational model about something, and that model wouldn't have a very hard time accessing what Haneen constructed. I think that would make a very huge difference. So the key is the collaboration between the two sectors, which we heavily lack, unfortunately, in the region.
Feel free to go on, Dr. Jamila.
Yes, and I think, the interesting aspect also is both the exceptional but also not exceptional nature of this episode. And how do we trace that kind of paradox, right? Certainly, it's very hard to imagine something more bloody or horrific than the Nakba in 1947 to 1950, which we usually just periodize as 1948, which again is kind of an interesting, if you trace where that idea comes from, like kind of collapsing of a 3 to 4 year systemic campaign of ethnic cleansing to a single year. It's kind of interesting. And that itself is a narrative structure that we want to think about. What are the episodes? How do we periodize them? And how is it that the language model, even in the Arabic region, Arabic language news and all this kind of stuff, kind of keeps imposing that that kind of periodization? Another one would be that, the invasion and occupation, it always begins in 1982 in the narratives about Lebanon, because Beirut is the center of the universe. Love Beirut. It is the center of the universe. But actually, it began in 78 in the South. But the South has that kind of narrative marginalization as part of the efforts to. And so part of the reason why I'm kind of saying all that is I think there's strangely something hopeful and comforting to people in my experience, just in this war, just with the younger people, seeing that kind of repetitiveness, right? It kind of disrupts the shock and awe, terrorizing psychological nature of things. And I think that allows me to also point out a little bit of some of the complexities of collaboration. For example, the way an archive scientist would think about these kinds of collections of information or records, we call them, versus perhaps from a big data analytics perspective. So we're working with the Safir newspaper, one of the only newspapers that's operated, anyway, all the Arab people know what the Safir is, and they have digitized their newspapers. And so if you can see now that they're putting up on social media scans of newspapers about the treacherous Lebanese government going into talks with the Zionists, which you could actually almost word for word is the narrative right now happening in Lebanon. And the fact that it's not exceptional, that it's happened before and we're right here and we're still on the land and it didn't work then, gives you all sorts of different perspective rather than the way in which it's being trumped up as this. But the power of that, to some degree, is that you see it as an actual archives record, not just the data extricated into big data models and then mined through AI. Part of that power is that. So also thinking as we're trying to work through, for example, if there's anyone, Dr. Karim, you're getting many emails from us, but if there's anyone who'd like to help us think about how we can take this massive terabytes of social media we've archived with the metadata of everything in context and turn it into something searchable and navigable without extracting it into big data out of context.
Yeah.
You know, you can tell how excited I'm getting just at the idea.
Yes, that's a very important an issue as well, keeping it in real context. And yeah, I think it turns out that we are not only have no access to the standard media, in the West at least, but we also have, we have the AI revolution almost against us. It's in a sense, and we have the resources are being built, but how do we get them to the masses with this bottleneck, which is the media and the AI that we do not own? For reconstructing the narratives, I think certainly we should be ready for the moment that we can disseminate in various ways. Yeah, which is quite important, reaching the masses as well, such that they know. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Mustafa, Professor Mustafa Zarar.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry, I have a question to. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm talking from another laptop. So my question is actually to Dr. Jamila about the archiveslabs.org. So I really didn't hear much about it. What kind of content, how much is the content like related to Nakba do you have? And my other question, maybe even to all panelists, is about, well, there are many Nakba archives, but it seems nobody is synchronizing with the other. Nobody is talking to the other. So we have a problem, fragmented content here and there. So, and as you said, Dr. Khalil, we have AI tools. We have the power, but we are not using it. So basically, Dr. Jamila, can you tell us more now about maybe archives before we finish the panel? I would like to hear more about it.
The short answer is that the Archives and Digital Media Lab is not a collecting institution, and it's not an archive in itself. But at the lab, we're one of the places that houses the Fighting Erasure Project, which does collect both data and archival records as part of fighting erasure, as Hanin mentioned, but most of the archival work I do for the project and that the Archives and Digital Media Lab does is to have worked with people who have key collections on the ground in Palestine and Lebanon to preserve them and protect them in the context of their systematic targeting and looting by the Zionists. So it's quite this difference. It fills this kind of gap. That said, there's a massive trove of material, including oral history that Hanin could speak to more, that she's been collecting. But part of the work that I did with Ghada Dimashq and a team of people at ADML was to collect about 16 terabytes of social media, to archive social media focused on people who are victims or perpetrators of the what you can call the ongoing Nakba or the genocide and expansionism. And we had to stop, unfortunately, about a year ago because of capacity issues. But we were trying very hard to pick it up again. And if there's anybody who can help or anything, we're always begging for help. But the key point I would say, for example, is we have a verify, like we have records, or what I call records, but we have social media content that has already been removed, such as the kind that Rama you talked about.
And if I may, concerning the, go ahead, Rama. I'm sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead.
It's okay. I wanted to ask a question to Hanin and Jamila on a different topic, so you can go ahead.
Okay.
I don't know.
So having multiple, I mean, like there is actually kind of strength in numbers. I mean, like having multiple archives is not bad in that sense. Also, the sheer amount of content that pushes a particular narrative on the web that would get picked up by Common Crawl and then would feed into the large language models is really, really important. There's something to be said in that regard, in the sense that large language models need to see something multiple times before it actually registers and become part of its memory. If it sees it once, passes through once, then it might not get picked up at all, right? Large larger language models need less repetition, but at the end of the day, we have competing narratives, and basically having multiple archives, a plethora of articles, a plethora of websites that of high quality that actually push the same narrative is really, really, really super important. I mean, like if you do a search on Google now, you will find lots of content that would not be to your liking, and somebody had gone through and made the effort to to have lots and lots and lots of content by many different people feeding into the same narrative.
Yeah, this is certainly, there is a whole machine behind that. Yeah, please feel free, Rama, please go ahead. You were already before.
I just one follow-up before we go to the next topic. Just a quick note, if possible, Dr. Khalil. Can I just
go ahead. So say
on what Karim said before we because
yes, certainly.
Yeah, regarding common crawl, which is used, common crawl is like to archive the web, and large language models are trained on the common crawl data. One thing I just found, we have in Palestine 3,200 domain names that are active. Only 190 sites are included in the common crawl. For example, website of the Birzeit University is not included. Al-Ayyam newsletter is not included. Al-Hayat newspaper is not included. So this is just to give you an idea that the extreme
but this is a fixable problem, ya Doctor. Yani, I mean, let's actually talk offline, and I'll help you fix it today. I mean, basically, we have context with Common Crawl. I mean, one of the things that at QCI we've done, we've actually contributed more than 30,000 good URLs to Common Crawl. And if you have more, the better. I mean, basically, we need to have our content better represented in what people use for training.
Great. Yes. Yeah, Rama, you're now your turn. Please go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask Haneen and Jamila about is there like what does a legally sound documentation of visual content, since there's a lot of visual content focus, especially in Haneen's work, like what would that look like? Is there like an established chain of custody standard that you're following and like archiving? And I'm asking this in an attempt to ask myself if it could be automated, because like if we're trying to reconstruct narrative, every source that we use needs to be to some extent legally sound for it to be acceptable widely. And I'm looking for answers around that, if there is ways to automate a part of that.
Just a note of order. We have very little time. We're over time almost. I don't know what happens with the room, but I'll just leave Haneen to answer, and I hope we can just close after that.
I will give a quick answer. So the ethical question is really at the core of our work, right? So there's the ethical question and there's the legal question. To start with the ethical is about also respecting the victims, respecting the women, respecting the men and women who have been raped, the children. So there's a lot of ethical in there into how do we respect human dignity, while at the same time we want to show the violence of this genocide. And this has been the core of the conversations that we've had, not only as a team on this project, but also with our team workers, right? And then this brings us to the legal question. So that in order for us to, let's say, document testimonies, so far we have been able to document 10,000 physical testimonies. That means that our field workers go to families. So you see, to give you a quick example, something concrete, وزارة الصحة issues the Excel sheet, the famed Excel sheet with the 70,000 names in them of the victims of the genocide, okay? What that sheet, the Excel sheet has, it has the name, gender, date of birth, and date of death mostly. These are the data that are in there. That is not sufficient for the work that we want. We want, first of all, to honor these victims, and we want them to be more than just names in an Excel sheet, right? So we want to have a big questionnaire that gives us a bigger picture of who that person was. So we took that Excel sheet, and then we took the names of it, and then we traced the families of those victims. But before doing that, we sat with the legal team and we asked them, what are the questions that we can put on a questionnaire and ask the family members to give us access to that are legally bound in the courts, in the ICG, that the South African team can also use as evidence. And so it becomes more than just a questionnaire to document archive, but it also becomes one for accountability. And so eventually what the questionnaire itself, which has about 20 questions, that goes beyond name, gender, and date of death. It has the name, the gender, the profession, the place, the kind of weapons that were used, the location of where that person was killed. Was it an F-16 attack? Was it a tank? Was it artillery? So we go into the very details. And then the other step of legality is that then we went to the Ministry of Health and we asked them, can we have their medical files? And this is, for instance, where the Ministry of Health would shut its doors and be like, we are not sharing that kind of sensitive information with you. If you want to preserve that documentation in that archive, part of why we want that from them is that we are afraid they will get bombed again and all of that archive will be lost. So there's a lot of that, right? There's a lot where you want to stick to the legal and the ethical, and there's the place where you know this is an unfolding, ongoing genocide. And even that data that the Ministry of Health has been struggling to scrap and put and preserve after 2 years of genocide, we know that it's a new target. So we are struggling as to what can you digitize, what can you scan without losing. So these are the ethical conversation that we keep having, and we try as much as we can to preserve. For instance, this morning, this is just before I jumped into this call. Sorry, I'm going beyond time, but to give you the kind of obstacle we face. So this is before I got into this call. We finally have all of the pictures of all of the medical staff that were killed. And many of these pictures are of the doctors. Some we were able to find their normal, right? The picture before death or a picture on the medical card, so it's a random picture. But many of the other pictures, especially when all of the family is killed, is a picture of the doctor laying in blood with a bullet between his eyes or behind his back, right? That a doctor took in his cell phone. So we got access to that. And the field worker received the permission of the doctor to take that picture from him. So she has a copy and she sent the entire file to me. And so I'm not going to put the picture of that doctor with a bullet behind his head online as part of his medical profile on the website. So, right. So these are the kind of day-to-day things that it is. Yes, it is an archive. And yes, I want this to remain because I want history and the world to know what has been done to us. But how do we deal with all of these, especially that this is the first time we have a genocide that has such vital images for accountability in the future? I see Palestine free, and I see us, putting these people on trial, and I see myself showing them those pictures someday. I see that happening. So I need to preserve that too. And the conversation today is for us to understand, how do we do this ethically, respecting our people and respecting a legal space, right? That has to protect and hold accountability. So it's a big answer, but it shows all of the things that we deal with as we preserve.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very important. And yeah, I think I just want to thank the panelists, all of them, and say hopefully we will be able indeed to do what you said, Haneen, and hopefully we can have these archives. We had one archive that was stolen in Beirut. The PLO held that archive and it was stolen in 1982. We are starting again with little in hands to start with, but there is already a lot accumulating thanks to the Israelis, obviously. All right, so I'll leave it now to Dr. Mustafa to close the workshop. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.